The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Friday the 13th of May 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,272.40 an ounce, silver $17.10 an ounce, Texas crude $46.70 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 457 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 609, Pope Boniface I turns the Pantheon in Rome into a Catholic church. It was given to the Pope by the Byzantine Emperor Phocas. Pope Boniface then ordered that the church should, quote, be made to the Holy Virgin Mary and to all the martyrs, so that the commemoration of saints would take place henceforth, where not gods but demons were formerly worshipped. The rebranding of the Pantheon, today in history. In recent news, the Obama administration suggested today that public schools across the United States let transgender students use a bathroom in locker rooms that corresponds to their gender identity. The statement issued just days after the Justice Department and North Carolina mutually sued each other over their state law requiring transgender individuals to use a public bathroom that corresponds to the gender on their birth certificate. And though this push from the White House is not legally binding, since this issue has not yet been definitively answered by the courts, schools that refuse to comply could potentially be hit with a civil rights lawsuit from the government and even face a cutoff of federal aid to education. Texas's Lieutenant Governor Republican Dan Patrick said that the state is prepared to forfeit billions rather than to let the Obama administration dictate restroom policy for its 5.2 million students. Many other governors and state legislators have voiced similar concerns, calling this a blatant overreach of executive powers. At BMW's annual shareholder meeting yesterday, BMW chairman of the board, Harold Kruger, detailed BMW's next innovative flagship, iNext, an autonomous, intelligent, lightweight electric car, a combination of BMW's electrified i brand and the Vision Next 100 concept car that debuted with the company's 100th year birthday. This sci-fi ride will be BMW's answer to the growing number of high-tech, luxurious electric vehicles, running up as the major challenger to Tesla. The Lone Star Lowdown is currently looking for sponsors. If you have a product or service you'd like to advertise with us, feel free to give me a call at 210-363-2257. It's been Rick Rohde with your Lowdown for May 13th, 2016.
Welcome, everyone, to Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior here on the Logos Radio Network, 89.1 FM in Austin, Texas. This is Ryan Metzel broadcasting live out of the Brave Cave here at Brave New Books. My lovely hosts and friends and Nourishment Warriors are back in Australia. So we have Dr. Elisa Wampole, David Burke, and then I believe Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger is playing in a poker tournament. So we're hoping his luck stays with him for that.
Yes, indeed. We are here in Sydney. Andrew's actually playing right now, so he may not make an appearance unless it's on a break for his game. But yes, we hope he does well. And Sydney's beautiful. This is my first time here. I've not yet been to Sydney until just this week. And it's a really cool spot. I am enjoying it very much.
Yeah, Sydney is kind of unique as a country, a city within a country, because it is so close to the beaches, and you can go from the CBD, the middle center of Sydney. And in Sydney, there's approximately around 3 million people. And in about 12 minutes to 20 minutes, you can be at the beach. And the beaches are rather beautiful. People very much have their lifestyles in Sydney influenced by the beach and the idea of being able to go down and experience nature, sit in the sun, regenerate, have a swim in the ocean, and after that, go back into the city where you're surrounded by cars, people, shops, stores, all the city life, but you have like this balance of of nature versus the city.
David, we only just got here a few days ago, so I have not yet been to the beach. But David, do they have sharks in the ocean here?
Yes, there are sharks in Sydney.
But people still go swimming? It's not too dangerous?
Statistically, they tell you that it's a very low chance of being attacked by a shark. Have people ever been attacked by sharks? Yes. Me personally, I'm not a major avid person of swimming in the ocean. I like diving, because you can see better in the ocean. There's a joke that some locals in the surfing community, they call the people who ride the small board shark biscuits, because you kind of look like a turtle. But so many people swim in the ocean, the amount of shark attacks are very small. Personally, I'm not really into that. But there's these incredible areas in Australia on the beaches where they actually build these rectangular-shaped swimming pools in the ocean. So you're safe to swim, do whatever you like. You can swim laps like you're doing a swimming pool. They're built beautifully, extremely nice and relaxing. I think those are a lot of fun and quite enjoyable.
Okay, so then they can't come in because they have a little net around.
Well, a net, but also has this barrier, kind of like the one in Austin. It has it's a man-made swimming pool, but it's used a lot of the rocks and the design of the ocean. So it's safe, but you have the whole oceanic experience.
Okay. And we have a selection of, we went out to a vegan restaurant last night. It was lovely. We had dinner with a friend that David and Andrew made when they were here, the first time they were here, not too long ago. And I've noticed they have a reasonable amount of health food stores and places, selections for vegans, which is wonderful. It's probably the best place, Ryan, that we found to rival Juiceland.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, with regards to being able to get fresh green juices. And we've been traveling a lot, and Juiceland is still one of the best anywhere we've been. But there is a place here called About Life that's a organic grocery store. They have pesticide-free produce, organic produce, and natural health foods, all those things.
They have a list on the website of all the local farmers their produce comes from, so you can look up, you can visit the farms. And so they're very, actually kind of much like the co-op one in Austin, Ryan.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, we actually went to for breakfast, a small cafe restaurant. It's called Protein with an I at the end.
Protini. I saw Lisa's Snapchats.
Yeah, and the lady actually is a Navy chef that runs it. And it has vegan, vegetarian food there, all organic. And I asked her, why do you choose to have organic food? And she's like, well, my mother always showed me how incredible nature is. And her mother is very spiritual and, believes that we're provided for by a universal source. And she's very happy and inspired by nature. So, of course, it's unusual to find so many GMOs or a lot of GMOs in Australia. So the cafe is all organic and sources all organic foods. And it's quite interesting talking with her. I joked and said, oh, have you ever seen a curvature on the horizon with the flat earth trending so much these days and so much interesting debate and fascinating debate. Like I tell everyone, I don't yet have an opinion on the subject. I'm always open to learning. I think keeping your mind open to learning is what's going to allow you to learn what you don't know, because it's what you don't know that you want to know that's going to make you whole as a person. So, I will listen to the communication of any person for a small amount of time to a large amount of time, depending on, how much truth I can source out of using the quadrivium and trivium and logic and intuition parts of our consciousness that we have. But fascinating, she said, yes, they've never seen a horizon. And something also, she was nice enough to tell us that on the Navy ships, the Navy ships do produce their own water by distilling water. So, yes, we can distill water from seawater quite easily and efficiently supply a Navy vessel. Then surely we don't have to worry about too much of a lack of water in California if we wanted to use the human resource of the great minds that live in California. We could borrow from Austin or Australia probably if they need some help, and create an endless supply of fresh water for people for growing food. Something fascinating, actually, we're talking to some of the Chinese people that live in Australia. I was asking about how China so successfully is able to feed so many people. And it's actually fascinating. What China did is they made nature work for China. So they have the mountains, and the mountains were carved in such a way that the water rests in the mountains, and it slowly goes down in levels. And because the understanding in China is how water works. So when we talk about a lack of water, in some of the perspectives we have with some of these, I think they tend to be extreme in their views. And when we ask other countries how they've created so much food, because remember China's population is in the billions, many Western countries are only in the few million or 100 millions. And so they built these levels of layers into the mountain where the water sits, and then it trickles down to the next one and then the next layer. And in those layers, they're growing all the crops of water. And then what happens is, because of the way the mountain is, the water goes down to the bottom and then it's evaporated, but the water that's evaporated and pulled up gets caught in all the trees in the mountain. So the trees in the mountain, then the water runs down the leaves and branches and all these areas, and the whole cycle starts and restarts again. So they don't really have a very high water loss because they're harvesting the water over and over again, kind of like if we had a growing dome and the plastic of the growing dome is preventing the water from escaping. It's the same thing on a larger scale. The trees, the forests of the mountains are stopping the water escaping. And it cycles over and over again. And so they've been able to successfully feed billions of people from this way of working with nature with farming.
That's pretty neat. And it just shows that things are so much more sustainable than the common perception.
Yeah, another incredible technique China did, and this happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, is they drilled hundreds of wells into the ground. So they knew where the table of water, fresh water, rushed down from the mountains underground. And by drilling into the ground these wells, hundreds of, if not thousands of them, and they're able to turn what was a desert area into a large agricultural area, which feeds millions upon millions of people. And there's so much water, and it's so well done. The system's existed for 1,000 years. That's actually where they grow all their grapes, which they use to make everything from wine to drying them out and supply the whole country with grapes.
Yeah, China's a very interesting country, and there's probably a lot that we can learn from China still about farming and sustaining, and of course, being a Chinese doctor, there's just such a wealth of information within their culture. And it's interesting because the Chinese woman we gave yesterday, and I'm sure David also has a similar point of view, she said that a lot of people in China aren't into the monastic way of life or the theory, the Taoist theory and all these things she said there. Was it this particular person who said that, David, or was it somebody? Oh, it was her friend who said this. And I've heard that too from other people, that when they go to China searching out information about Taoism or martial arts or this cultural richness that they have, a lot of the people commonly don't really study it.
Yeah, they get the benefits from it because, the inner nucleus of society is very aware of culture. One of the great things about China is the family aspects of Chinese culture, where the family's very close together, and you can end up having a lunch or dinner with 50 of your relatives. But yeah, with our friend from China, we had lunch with learning about the successful agricultural systems that China uses by using nature to work with it, not against it. They remove lack. They have incredible amounts of food they can supply very affordably for their whole country. And it just shows when you work with nature how successful you can be. And after break, we'll talk about some of the sustainable farming going on in India.
And again, this is Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. Today is Sunday, May 15th here in Australia. And in Austin, it's one day before. But hopefully we're going to have a wonderful show today. And we will be back right after this break. Thanks so much.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
I'm on the immortal path, meditate on the of the healing way. The Dharma will ascend. The golden age is rising. The Dharma will ascend. In my death is my beginning. In my beginning is my death. The circle of life is never ending. Each life journey on intention depending. Cultivate yourself and accept your eternity. Experience your bliss through the simple maturity. The angel of death came my way. Had some advice to say. When you dream, you still see. No time.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Ryan Metzel here in Austin, Texas. And we have Dave and Elisa in Australia. How's the weather out there?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show.
Australia is moving slowly into the colder climate at the moment, and it's actually still very warm. And so, actually, if you're in Australia, you still can enjoy the more activities of going to the beach, the park, sports, getting a tan, all those type of things still. But before the break, I was talking about sustainability in India. So India absolutely loves many people. Their new leader at the moment. And we actually were in India, and we got to meet some of the supporters of him and the type of changes India is going through as a country. And India is modernizing its infrastructure in many of its cities. And it's actually, when you look at it, say a city like New Delhi, it has around 150 million people in New Delhi and the surrounding areas. And they're actually having to dig down and put the underground subway systems in with all these people on the surface. It is truly an amazing engineering feat, and they are actually getting it done. They're doing a great job down there.
Yeah, they said he'll be done in only 4 years. And man, they really need it because I've never seen traffic like they have in New Delhi.
Yeah, they have a lot of traffic there.
It's completely madness.
Austin traffic is good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's different from the U.S. traffic because of the types of vehicles that are on the road. Because not only are there cars, but there's people helmetless with motorbikes, and it's like mom, dad, and the baby are all sitting on the motorbike, and then you have someone carrying a block of ice on their head, and then someone with a bicycle carrying like pipes, and then somebody else riding a cow down the road, and I've seen elephants walking down the road.
Wow.
And camels, and then just the people are walking straight into the traffic, and just it seems narrowly missing getting hit by a car, but somehow it all kind of flows together.
Yeah, it's like an organic chaos. The people there have worked out how to integrate all of these many facets, and they do a great job. I didn't see any major accidents the whole time I was in India, so however they're doing it, it is working. And but with in India, the government also is very pro agriculture in India because there's a lot of people in India, and they actually put in subsidies and to help anyone who had farming or wanted to do farming to put drip water systems into their farms. So a friend of ours who worked with that government program and some of the agricultural experts on drip systems, they installed a drip system on their farm, and they had an increase in 38% of their, and it's an organic farm, so they increased 38% in one season their produce in using a drip water system. So they're rather surprised and enthusiastic about the incredible amount of food now they're able to offer to their community. And it just shows you how simple some of these food solutions are.
That's really a huge increase, 30%. And
38%.
38%, wow.
And they had tons and tons and tons of extra mangoes.
And Dave, can you explain what the drip water system is? It seems they just put hoses so that the water's constantly dripping onto the crops.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, when we look at the Chinese system for feeding billions, it's about preventing water loss or just so the dripping system is just like many people. Like when I was a kid, I had a drip system for growing orchids because for me it was deemed necessary to learn how to grow orchids. I'm still trying to work out why, but fascinating. Orchids, how they have male and female parts, and you can grow them and how they hang from. You hang them, and they're actually not in the ground. They grow amazing, have beautiful flowers. But for growing as a kid, you run a plastic pipe, and that plastic pipe you put holes in it, and in those holes like this, they look like little screws, and it allows the water to drip out. And you can actually, by the screw on top, you can decide how much water drips out of the dripping system. So when you're letting small amounts of water drip very close to the root system areas, the actual branches of the tree itself is going to help stop some of that water being evaporated. And also, because of the amount of water, it's going into the soil it's a lot less being evaporated and lost. So you increase hugely the amount of water and its efficiency of how it's used by the plant to grow. And you extremely reduce the amount of water that's evaporated. So the results that our friends in India are getting with their farms, it's been done for centuries, this dripping system, but it's incredible that a person in government, and I very much see why so many people do love their leader at the moment in India, has gotten behind encouraging people to grow food, encouraging people to become sustainable, and encourage large-scale organic farming, because India has grown food organically and clean food, for centuries for more people that live in large Western populations. You could combine the whole of the US and the EU, and India could still supply more food than is needed for that size population. I mean, that's how simple it is. But it's really because when you look at India as a country with its spiritual faith, they do very much see their interpretation of God being perfect, being loving, supplying them with what they need. They are a vegetarian-based society in their spiritual beliefs, and so they are quite easily able to supply their population with food. And it's, when you have the grace of being able to see how a population can supply abundantly all people in your community and your country with food, if the restrictions of excessive tax, of special interest for technology, of insane control over water rights, where it's so impossible in many places, unfortunately in the West and in California, restrictions coming in areas of Oregon on the use of water, which is provided for everyone before we got here, and it falls from the sky. It's not, no one's artificially creating it. And when you look at the systems of India and China and some of the incredible sustainable water systems in Australia they have for growing food, you really see that there's absolutely no reason for any lack of water or food. It's a functionality technology restriction that's being leaned on very much so by, one might say, special interest groups.
One thing that's really interesting about having the opportunity to travel around the world in all these different places is we meet so many different types of people, and we observe so many different types of cultures and what works and what doesn't. And even traveling to Australia, so we meet someone from China, because China and Australia are relatively close in proximity. There's a lot of Chinese people here, and it's really amazing to compare the different types of cultures, how they support themselves, the taxation, the farming. It gives you an insight into what works and what doesn't. It's very interesting. But we will be back right after this break. Hang tight, everyone.
We all know smoking is bad, but new evidence shows babies whose fathers smoked around the time of their conception have an increased risk of developing childhood cancer. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back with details in a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Smoking kills. It's no secret, and we've all heard the health warnings. But did you know that tobacco could also kill your unborn child? Australian researchers found that although mothers smoking did not increase their children's risk of getting cancer, kids whose fathers smoked around the time of their conception were more likely to develop acute lymphoblastic leukemia, or ALL, the most common form of childhood cancer. And the more dad smoked, the greater the risk. If dad smoked a pack a day, his baby was 44% more likely to be diagnosed with the disease. So papas, consider what you're doing to your unborn kid before you light up. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
Rise as one and stand and live.
Welcome back, everyone, to Austin, Texas, here on Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. And we've plugged Australia into Austin, Texas. And we were talking a little bit on the break about how apparently there may be some misconceptions going around in different parts of the globe, which may or may not be flat. See our show a few weeks ago for more on that information. But, apparently there may be some propaganda going on from certain cities in the U.S. telling people not to deal with Texas and to deal with them, those cities, possibly maybe because they're failing and everyone's leaving certain cities in the U.S. and coming to Texas. So I think, Dave, you had a little bit more insight into that too as well.
Yeah, because, for your listeners, I was born in Australia. And I got to spend time in the U.S. where I went to school, et cetera, and did work in California, in Los Angeles, and then I also spent time in Austin. I spent time in other cities, Las Vegas. And so I got to see the great things about each area and also seeing the things that aren't so great. And I can, and so having the experience of that, the empirical experience, and I love Texas, I love Austin, I love Dallas, I love these areas because it's so business friendly. The red tape is very small, local family businesses do a great job. I found Austin to be one of the most incredible small business places I've ever seen in the world. And also I found Austin and Texas itself to not be what was claimed by many people to me in California. They would say, it was interesting, my friend who was my mentor, who was a senior VP of corporate law for a major U.S. company, Fortune 500 company, he was from Texas. And he was one of the nicest, wonderful people I ever met in California. Actually, he was probably my best friend in California. And he, I always found it fascinating that he was so nice and such a nice, wonderful, giving person. And he was from Texas. And many people in California told me, don't go to Texas. They're all racist there. They're bad people. Don't trust them. All these type of generalized defamatory statements. And I never really understood why. And because everyone I met from Texas, not everyone was, I'd want to have them over for dinner or lunch, but many of them were very nice, polite, wonderful people. And I was more and more became fascinated about Texas, so I went to take a look for myself with Dr. Lisa. And we were just amazed. It was the opposite of what we were told by many people. And being in Sydney, Sydney is heavily influenced politically by a lot of U.S. groups. And it's kind of interesting, we have a lot of this groups that are, one would say, they support these democratic, liberal, minority, I think, extreme ideas. A lot of these business groups that are and people conversations in Sydney, and some of them might not even be aligned with whatsoever the Democratic parties. They're just individuals that run businesses, or just individuals from areas that aren't Texas. And so what I'm running into in Sydney is that I'm talking to local people in Sydney, and they're informing me that, I tell them, I love Austin, I love Texas, great places, people should visit there. And they're like, we heard that everyone in Texas is racist. We heard people in Texas, are all killing each other, and they're the problem for all the wars. And wow,
or they don't like gays, or they're this, they're that.
They're phobic this, phobic that. They're bad people. You shouldn't go to Texas. Shouldn't do business with Texas. All these type of things. I'm like, where are you guys getting this information? Have any of you been to Texas? And they're like, no. But we hear from people from California, New York that come over, and they're saying these things. And I'm like, I really need to get a list of names because, saying such defamatory things about generalizing everyone in Texas, it's just horrible. And Australia is a major trading partner of the United States. And more and more talking with people, it seems to have some type of a business reasons to it. So you'll see in Australia we have shipping set up where Australia has some incredible shipping rates from the US because Australians do love things made in the United States, and they love to consume and import those things. And so it's a $1 billion industry. So what I think needs to happen is Ryan, we need to communicate to the Austin's business network, and we need to put together a website, an information flyer, things of people in Sydney and Australia, especially tourism, and communicate to them the Texas that you and I both know, that Elisa knows, that people who are good people in Texas know, And, we need to take the information directly to people who are saying defamatory, incorrect statements or journalistic about people in Texas businesses. And we need to give Australians the opportunity to purchase from Austin businesses, Texas businesses. And it's incredible. Like, there's advertising everywhere to travel to New York and California. I know some good people from New York and California. This isn't about like New York versus California, California versus Texas. This is about individuals that may have business interests, that may have political bias, that may have want to make money from tourism, that communicating to Australians and them telling me, we're not going to get Texas. Texas is racist, or Texas people are dangerous, or they're bad people. And I'm asking, where are you getting this information from? They're like, from people from California, or people from New York, or from mainstream TV that's politically biased in the US. It's affecting the bottom line and the opportunities of both people in Australia, both people in Texas, and maybe other states too. And it's also doing harm to people in California. It's doing harm to people in New York who are good people, because they don't need to put someone down erroneously, or a whole city or a state down erroneously to get ahead. They've got something good of value to exchange with the international community, and they should be focusing on that. But what I do want to move together this week, Ryan, is, let's have a chat to the business groups and government groups in Texas, and let's get our own communication to the Australian public and let them know how great Texas and Austin is. And people who want to defame and slander Texas and Austin and its businesses, let's take the debate all the way to their doorstep. And let's, find out where this signal, this information is coming from. Because I can tell you, and I'm sure many people can, from living in Austin, Texas, it's a place of individual rights. And it's a place that if you want to pursue your individual rights, you have a greater chance in Travis County, in Austin, in Dallas, of pursuing your individual rights than many areas around the world. And being in, it still has as many problems with, we have some special interest groups. We have, it takes forever to get permits in Austin, just like it is in many other areas. But, people in Austin are like great, good people, and small business, family business in Austin, and even larger businesses. Some of them are incredible businesses and do a great service to the U.S. and can do a great service to the international community. And being defamed and marginalized and using these type of high school bully techniques to try and prevent them from this billion-dollar industry in Sydney of tourism, of trade, of education, of just cultural exchange, it really needs to be shut down. We really need to get organized with this, because I just want to see people be able to have their individual choices and rights to choose what's best for them.
Do you think it's just a really old stereotype that still exists about the Texas rancher who's, I don't know, living out in the middle of nowhere, not in touch with modern society?
I think stereotypes are propaganda. They come from interest groups wanting to marginalize someone else for them to be able to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, I agree with you there, for sure.
All right, so, coming up to our break here, so we'll get more here into how you can, correctly provide information across the world here after the break.
Descends to the earth, a time when the mind is defined and confined. We the people need to realign with the divine. A government for the people, by the people realigns. No more taxation without representation. It's time for the people to have their say. No longer the prey. Aligned with truth, there's nothing we cannot do. Divide and conquer lies and false promises. These are the archonic weapons of hurtful decay. The abundance of the earth is the perfect technology, and the golden age is now. Rise together as one in peace and prosperity. Are hacking the bio-internet, and the false light is blinding. Plugging into intuition, balance is restored, drawing from love. Fighting for freedom and liberty keeps the unity in the community. Good habits becoming better, refining the mind. Accepting divine impunity, we rise as one in unity. Life is a circle, life is eternal. The ancient wisdom opens the way. Together, we are the generation of the golden age.
Hello, and welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Elisa. I'm here with David Burke And Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger is at the moment playing his online poker tournament. So we'll send him some good energy and hope he has a great result today. We'll see how he goes.
And just for the break, we're talking about the relationships of Australian cities such as Sydney and Melbourne and the US. And I was going into the unfortunate experience I'm having of hearing the smear of Texas and Austin and Dallas and Fort Worth and these places by, it seems to be erroneous information being given to Australians from people who may have, special business interests, wanting people to use their business services in other states that aren't Texas. And so a smear has gone on saying Texas people are either racist or they're anti-science or they're anti-social, all these unfounded, made-up, inflammatory, devious statements. And when I ask people where these are coming from, they're saying, well, it's coming from people from, say, New York or California or this business group or that group, or it's coming from mainstream media. And it's disgusting because, Austin and Texas people are, many people there are incredible. Many people have great, innovative, cost-effective businesses, and Australians consume huge amounts of Australian goods. And I have talked to some Australian businesses, and they specialize in shipping. So they're able to bring US products to be able to be sold in the Australian market. So how they work is they have an office in the US, and that office there, the purchase is made of US goods, and then they're shipped directly from there to people in Australia. And this is a $1 billion industry. And we are going to open the door for Texas business owners to be able to begin getting their products, their offerings to the people in Sydney. I'm appalled by this type of smear that I've run into. And like I told Ryan, we need to put together an information website, information packet, because people should visit. They're going to holiday in America. They should visit the beautiful state of Texas and areas of Dallas and Austin, and get that real American experience of independence, of freedom, of liberty, things that, Australians are romanced about America, and of sports. Australians love sports, and we all know Texas is incredible at sports. And people in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth should get that opportunity, the same opportunity, to where they're hearing, interesting things about other areas in America to visit, travel, or to consume and buy their goods. This multi-billion-dollar industry. Texas needs to be given that opportunity also. So, Ryan, we are going to put together with you, and let's talk to John at Brave New Books at the headquarters there, and let's put together some incredible information of tourism for Texas and Austin and Dallas. And with the shipping company from Australia, it has extremely great rates that make it affordable, and people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on U.S. goods and bringing them into Australia. Let's allow Texas businesses to share their offerings also in these areas, and let's let a cultural exchange, and let's let people in Texas who are good people create friendships, great trade, great tourism with cities such as Sydney, with Brisbane, with Melbourne, and let's end this smear of good people in the great state of Texas.
Actually, Ryan, when we've been traveling around, I've heard David say, and I tell people all the time too, like, you got to visit Austin. So we ask them, have you been to the U.S.? And a lot of people have been to California and New York and these normal places, and they go,
I'm sorry for them.
Yeah, I know. It was really funny, actually. When we were in Monaco, there was a little grocery store right underneath where we were staying, and they were selling New York hats at the grocery store in Monaco. Really bizarre, and it's like, what, we're in Monaco, shouldn't we be selling a Monte Carlo hat? But no, they had New York hats there, and we see people everywhere. Even just walking down the street, I noticed at least 2 people that had on Venice Beach, California shirts on.
Yeah, you see a lot of Australia, probably like 1 out of 5 wearing some type of U.S. merchandise, which is great for people selling merchandise and things in the U.S. But they're, sports people like to wear a Venice Beach one, but we know Texas has incredible sporting teams. We know Texas has incredible athletes. We know we've had on the show, and you've talked to some people in Texas who are just, incredible Olympians, incredible ambassadors of sports, incredible ambassadors of brands. If we need to let Australians know the great spirit of Texas that I've got to know. Like, the reason we have the Austin Universe Fitness Show in Texas is because of the great spirit of the people in Texas. And let's get together with our minds and let's get a nice radio podcast signal going into Sydney and Melbourne with our friends. We've got some great friends that are in the Navy and Army of Australia that are really excited to come and visit Austin, Texas, and really excited to begin bringing in some of the raw vegan superfood options that we have with our Austin, Texas company there. And they're really interested also in some of the type of books and the information that stores like Brave New Books have. They're really interested in some of the types of sporting events, because Australians love sport, that go on in Texas. They're very interested in the idea of bringing over some of the bands from Austin, Texas that have concerts in Australia. And Austin, Texas has incredible bands. And I know we're going to be doing a concert this year, Brian, and putting together some, how's the agenda going on? We've got some e-game ideas, we've got some concert ideas. We'd love to put together a sister event, I think, in Sydney and Melbourne. It'd be a great way for culture exchange in Texas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. That's the Austin Universe show Dave is referencing, and looks like it's going to be between August 19th through the 28th, with the main show being August 27th, and looking to have that at the Leduc Arena there at the Travis County Exposition Center. So stay tuned for more information about that. And basically every kind of sporting event that you can imagine, we're planning on having, everything from fitness and figure and bodybuilding to powerlifting, Olympic lifting, strongman competitions, jiu-jitsu, maybe some MMA and boxing and some aerial acrobatics, a lot of yoga. And combine that with music and movies and the esports, as Dave mentioned. And I think we should have a pretty exciting time there in August.
Yeah, I agree, Ryan. And also on the Texas end, can we have you check in? I know they're passing a law in Texas that Texas will be able to start exporting its oil. And if we know that Texas is exporting its oil and its oil is available to purchase for Australian companies, I will do my best to share the information with government while we're here in Australia and large businesses in Australia to have the opportunity to be able to also see the type of offerings that the Texas people are offering with their oil sales.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea too. So hopefully by then too, we'll have all of the veggie cars up and ready. So we'll be able to have a fleet of cars running on vegetable oil, which is a very interesting oil alternative.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many incredible energy ways to propel things in motion. And the more and more you look at the Nikola Tesla documents of being able to broadcast electricity, and it's, when you begin looking at the Tesla drawings, you really see the simple step being defeated. It's a very simple thing to create, I think, to create electricity, to create free energy, as in the freedom of energy to be able to move from one point to another point and be able to be tuned into. The designs aren't that complicated because when you're actually doing something that works, it follows a geometrical principle and a mathematical principle that is easy to replicate, is easy to teach. When we get into hocus pocus mathematics and theories of theories upon theories of calculus of theories, that, as Nikola Tesla pointed out, we have people pushing theories and theories upon theories, but they're not really doing true scientific investigation, not really doing true science, where you see how many real things Tesla built and made and created that are functional, that are useful. By its functionality, by its ability to be replicated, its science speaks for itself, its theory speaks for itself in Tesla's work. When you get into some of this hocus pocus physical sciences, of the theory of this and the theory of that, they're not practical, they don't have functional use, and we're not being able to replicate and actually use those theories to create things that are of use. And maybe there are a few things that have been created, but I have yet to find anything.
Yep.
But I
Very
found
cool.
so many ways that...
We'll get into that more after the break. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Here after the big break, we are here on Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior for another hour, 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time here in Austin, Texas. And it's Saturday, May 14th on Australia, where David, Elisa, and Andrew, who is playing poker now, I believe it is Sunday. So before the break, we were getting in a little to the Texas and Australian relations with respect to maybe some misinformation being provided by states such as New York or California. Possibly because they're being voted things such as the worst place in the U.S. to live, the worst place to do business, and all their innovators seem to be moving either overseas or to Texas. So that could be some of the reasons for. We had on break here, John Bush actually brought up an amazing point about a certain culture here, which I do not believe is getting the information properly disseminated across the world. So could you go into that a little bit, John?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind grabbing me some headphones while I talk so I can hear if your co-host they reply. So, yeah, I agree that there's a lot of misinformation that comes out and a lot of issues. We'll plug it straight into the mixer. In Texas, my mother's Hispanic, and she's very close to Mexican culture and holds it very near and dear. And my father's Caucasian, and a lot of people think that there is, you know, a lot of anti-Mexican sentiment here in Texas. And this is especially a conversation that's come up because of what's going on with Donald Trump and his desire to build a wall. And I honestly think that a lot of that isn't emanating from Texas, because here in Texas we have this beautiful culture that's called Tejano. And it's literally a mix between Texan and Mexican. And in Mexican, in Spanish, Texas is Tejas, and Mexico is Mexico, so it's a merging of the two. And there's this great culture. You'll see Latinos that have cowboy hats and boots, and they have their Tejano music, which is very similar to country music, the bass groove and all that stuff. And there's also a great working relationship between Latinos and Caucasians. And just plug it right there in next to your red one. Sorry, I'm here producing, and unplug the quarter-inch jack and plug it in. Here, go ahead, Ryan. Talk about how Texas is so beautiful, and you love all the Mexicanos that are here.
Well, I'm not 100% sure. I think you treat everyone as an individual, but my experience is the people in Texas have certainly been a lot nicer than the people in New York when I was there. And I think California has a mix. I think I think the people who are more conscious are actually moving to Texas, and maybe the ones, you know, who are still staying in California, maybe they're for a reason.
Yeah. So I got the headphones on now so I could hear David and Alyssa. So yeah, the culture is there. It's called Tejano, and there's a Tejano music, there's a Tejano vibe, and I think there's a strong work ethic. And there's a lot of Texan Caucasian contractors that hire a lot of Mexicans to do the labor. And there's this whole like, oh, they're taking our jobs. Mexicans are lazy, they're drunks. But in reality, Mexicans, immigrants, whether they're here legally or not, are very hard and loyal workers. And if anybody's in the construction business, they know that. And I just take offense to the whole "they took our jobs" thing. I guess
they took our jobs.
They took our jobs. I guess I never experienced having a job, being in a job market for physical labor where there's a lot of competition. But I honestly feel like if you really want the job, you got to go out and fight for it. And something that I've noticed, there's a lot of homeless people around Austin. And I never see any Mexicanos sitting there asking for money. They're the ones that are out there doing the quote-unquote grunt work. It always seems to be older people that are drunk. There's a lot of veterans. There's a lot of people that are down on their luck. But I never see Mexicans out asking for money on the street corners because they're out working hard to provide for their family.
Yeah,
that's information, John. And I know that our, unfortunately, listeners in Australia and people in Sydney, they are good people, many of these people that I talk to, and many of them have never even traveled to the US, and they're getting these opinions formed. And when I ask them where the opinion come from, it's information they're being given. So I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of the Brave New Book message, getting that signal out there, the libertarian signal out there, the good Texas vibes out to Australia, so we can begin a communication and we can begin getting more tourism, more trade, more opportunity between the two countries, because Australia is a very special place, and Austin and Texas and Dallas and Texas is a very special place.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I must say, go ahead, John.
I was going to say that there seems to be some similarities with the whole rugged individualism and the do-it-yourself and the kind of open range mentality. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of space for people to make their own, to homestead and to really do their own thing. And I think it is a big misconception that Texans are racist and nasty, because I've traveled all around the country, And Texas, by far, the strangers, people that you don't know, are the most polite when it comes to opening doors, a tip of the hat, talking to strangers in a line. When you go to New York City or California or other places, it is not the case. You say hello to people, and oftentimes they ignore you. Here in Texas, people go out of their way to say hello and to just make people feel welcome, especially out of town.
That is so true. When I went to Texas, for one of the first times I was there, my car broke down, and at least actually I ran out of gas. But, the gas gauge was broken, but at least 5 people stopped and asked if I needed help, and I was kind of amazed because that wouldn't happen in California.
Yeah, I'll give my true story. So when I was in Los Angeles and working on film, my car broke down, the car that I borrowed from a friend. It's an old Lincoln. And I had to push it myself off the freeway area where it was like going to an on-ramp area. And probably 3 police cars rode past slowly and just looked at me. And none of them stopped and helped. And no one stopped and helped me, push my car to safety. And then when I got off the freeway entrance area and to the side, when I had to put, no one stopped. I was there for 2 hours, no one stopped to help. And this is how it was, my personal experience with that moment. And then the same thing when I was in Las Vegas. The car broke down. And I pushed it, and Elisa was helping me steer it, I think.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, many years ago.
Actually, I think the car ran out of gas that time.
Yeah, maybe. And there's probably 3 times police people drove past, and they just looked at me, didn't help, and they pulled up, actually, and went to the restaurant to get food. And they sat there and watched us pushing the car. And then not one person came to ask me to help with the car to fix it. And then when the same thing happened in Austin, because we're testing out these veggie cars, and the battery was flat because we found an old car we were restoring, and the battery was old. And I remember in front of Juice Land, it was Ryan. You actually were kind enough to Elisa to go and get a new battery for us. And we probably had, when we had the hood open of the car we were restoring, we probably had close to 20 people stop and ask me to help. It's like I needed to hold this time and say, I love you people, thank you for asking, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
And when the battery arrived, I didn't even
I remember that.
myself. There were 2 guys that had already grabbed the battery.
They just took the battery. We're like bringing the battery, and these guys just took the battery. Here, we got this.
They put it in, started the car up, and like, ready to go.
Yeah.
They're fired up.
In Austin,
actually,
I can't even fix my own car up.
It was really funny too because Ryan said, he said, guys, don't worry, let Austin do its thing. People are going to help. Don't worry about this. And that was Ryan's mantra. And we're like, oh no, we got to get the battery. And then sure enough, everyone just jumped in and helped. And that is what Texans, to me, I really like. They're the nicest, friendliest people I've come across.
Yeah, many of them are. And like I said, we always judge people by their individual essence and where we are from. But I have found people in Austin be incredible. It was so funny. So we had these several guys helping put the car battery in everything. And after there's oh, do you want to come down to the
drum circle?
To the drum circle. We're going to be drumming, doing yoga, talking about life and there's all these different types of food down here. You guys should come down and meet people. And I was like, oh my God, not only did they just fix the car, but they also then invite us to their own recreation activity during the weekend where they're doing with their friends.
At Barton Springs.
Yeah, Barton Springs. And it was it was just you felt so included and you felt actually a part of the community. When I was in, Los Angeles City, there were a couple of wonderful people I met in Los Angeles, but, the song, It's a Lonely Place, California's a lonely place, and it's a lonely place. You have, unfortunately, people are under so much economic stress that they probably aren't going to stop their car because they're rushing with their last $5 fuel to get their third job to try and pay their rent because, unfortunately, the economic, pressure and the lack of wealth for middle class in California it's real.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of funny, actually. My sister, when I met up with her in Utah last summer, she spilled her coffee in the airport, whatever, in Utah, and she was amazed that a couple people came up and helped her clean it up and gave her some napkins. And I said to her, that's how people are supposed to be. You just live in Los Angeles, and people are not nice, but in Utah, it was kind of a little bit similar to Texas. Everyone's just super nice. and they're there's the family values that still exist in some parts of the world,
to clarify,
of the U.S.
Not everyone in Los Angeles wouldn't help, but.
Well, that is funny. I noticed the same thing in Iceland too. Funny enough, because I remember one day where it had that crazy snow. If you guys remember, and I was waiting. Elisa got stuck a couple times driving in the snow. I was watching outside my window, and I was watching cars get stuck. And every couple minutes, like someone would come by and stop. And every time a car got stuck, it wouldn't take that long before someone they did stop to help, which I thought was hilarious. And none of these people knew each other, I don't think. So it's kind of funny how you see the same thing kind of there in Iceland, which is very similar to Austin. From my experiences. So we'll get into this a little bit more here after the break on Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. The LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We are here in Austin, Texas and Sydney, Australia, and just talking a little geopolitics about how business is being conducted in different parts of the U.S. and the ramifications it's having in Australia and here in Austin, Texas. So, Dave, you wanted to talk a little bit about the goings-on there in Sydney. How is everything there? I know they had the Olympics there several years ago, so I got to watch a little bit of it on TV. But, as they like to show the round Earth, we know that their looks can be deceiving for what they show you on the television. So, how is it there in person?
Tell lies. Tell lies vision.
Tell lies vision.
Tell lies vision.
Yeah.
You gotta love the etymology, breaking words down. It's funny, every time I write now, anytime I see a word like even like superfoods, right? So Burke Superfoods, again, if you don't have your Burke Superfoods, come down here to Brave New Books. They have all the products that, Dave and Elisa put together, just amazing stuff that I love to take every day, organic, raw, vegan proteins and everything. And I wanted to send a quick shout out to Liberty Stickers. They actually made all the posters and the flyers for the shows here. So the big banners that are here in the studio, thanks to those guys. That's libertystickers.com. But I was talking about like the word, say superfoods, right? I'm actually, anytime I write it out or type it out, I actually write super with S with capital and then foods capital too. And I've been doing this with every single word that I come across. And it's amazing the way certain words will break down, and then you can just, discuss the etymologies and, where they come from. And you learn so much about language by doing that.
Yeah, once you really get into, like we talked about this show a couple of weeks ago, and we should get more into it, when you begin getting back to what the liberal arts were, not this fake liberal anti-life, anti-knowledge, anti-science, extreme views that some people have, and they use the veil of liberalism to cover it, doing disservice to the liberal arts, the greatness of what liberalism is, which is based in the quadrivium, the trivium. Your ability to problem solve and to see the mathematical archetype of language and how language can lift the awareness of a human being to be able to solve the problems of society, from structural as far as its engineering, as communicative of how business and politics, of law, of the courts, how all our laws were based on the natural laws, the observations of nature. It really is a light in the darkness. And it's kind of interesting, like people talk about Freemasonry and founders being Freemasons. And some of my ancestors actually were founders, founding fathers in the United States. And when you talk about the Freemasonry, and I ended up getting a book given to me that was pre-World War I and II, and it was a Freemasonry book, and it was one of their, in a sense, it was a instructional manual for the apprentices of Freemasonry of a particular lodge, and the book is an original, and it was fascinating because the book was instructing someone to how to refine their mind to find the light and truth, and it was going into the study of the quadrivium, the liberal arts, of understanding, number, arithmetic, geometry, music, these arts as a way to be able to decode reality and to be able to create incredible works of both physical and of spiritual within itself. And you see how far the liberal arts have moved away from what it grammatically and mathematically, its etymology is meant to represent. And you look at the definitions of how liberal arts was put together. And like Elise said, she went to UCLA for undergrad at liberal arts school, and she learned nothing about the quadrivium, the trivium, the actual cause of what liberal arts were.
No, I never even heard of it until recently.
And it's so life-changing. It's such a light in the darkness. And being able to then talk to these so-called extremists who use the beloved word saying, oh, I'm a liberal, and you bring them back to the etymology of the words. And, no judge, I don't think, or a third party, if they looked at the definition, the etymology definition of liberal, and someone saying they're liberal would be like, oh, that word matches. You get 10 out of 10 for your exam of draw the line to the person who represents the definition of the word liberal.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting in Australia, the liberals are actually the conservative libertarians because they define how they act by the etymology of the words. Because when I was meeting liberals in political groups in Australia, so I love to learn from every group what their viewpoints are. They're the conservative libertarians. And it's like, huh? Like, well, look at me like I'm stupid. Like, don't you understand where the word liberal and liberty and liberal arts came from? And I'm like, well, I do more than I did last week.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that you can have two opposing, complete different views in two countries, but the root etymology of the words is as they lie.
Yeah, it's easy. It's interesting what people want to align themselves with, their ideal, and then what they actually represent sometimes are different.
Yeah, and when we're talking to some people from China, Australia gets a lot of, as described by the Chinese people themselves, some of the people who are from very strong, successful, educated families from China come to Australia. It's very close, and they invest in Australia. And I had the pleasure of having some dinner with one of these people. And fascinating, wonderful, empowered girl, just like I call her she's like a little Kondo hero, kung fu girl.
Yeah.
Little qualities of that I love and see in all women. She's educated, she's empowered, she's strong, has her independent thoughts. She reminds me of some of the, like Lisa, some of the Texas spirit of the girls in Texas. They're strong, educated, kind,
empowered.
Empowered. And that's like how being a reincarnated in a male body. I like to see women empowered. I think it's a very attractive quality. It's a gives strength to both women and men, empowered women. When talking to her, she was saying how so many Chinese business groups and banking groups and manufacturing groups they actually want to see Trump win the election. And I'm like, why would you want to see Trump? I'm just curious, why do you want to see Trump win the election? And they're like, well, conservative values, and they're talking because remember English is a second language. They're talking, well, when you define conservative values, then it's about taking away what doesn't work, but leaving what does work. And then, you don't want to make these huge changes because you're going to disrupt, your core center of how the country is prosperous. You just want to keep on, slowly refining and fixing it. And you want to go to these core values of, limited government. You want to go to core values that allow capitalism, that allow things that don't work fall apart and new things to be able to be built. And it was surprising for some people at the dinner that the Chinese educated groups of people were that knowledgeable of U.S. politics and that knowledgeable of the grammar of the words and what they should mean. And probably how it's nice they would be when they meet people who do say they represent such political movement, but they actually just speak falsities to try and benefit for themselves rather than delivering conservative values that we'd like to see in as far as capitalism and freedom of business.
Hang tight, everybody. We'll be right back after this short break.
When teenagers don't get enough morning sunlight, they may have a tougher time sleeping at night, and that can cause lower grades. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you about the latest research into sunlight and night owl syndrome next.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Do your kids have trouble getting to sleep? The cure could be a dose of morning sunshine. When teenagers don't get enough morning light, they're likely to go to bed later, get less sleep, and underperform in school. Scientists gave 8th graders special glasses to block so-called blue light. After 5 days, the students' evening onset of melatonin, the sleepy hormone, was delayed, and the kids fell asleep half an hour later than usual. So parents, open the blinds wide in the morning and help your kids soak up those rays. You can also buy light bulbs that mimic natural sunlight. It's the best way to help your kids shine. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
We'll be getting about chemtrails.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone, here in lovely Austin, Texas. Although it is a little bit rainy today, but I guess every once in a while it's nice for all the plants and trees here to get some water. And we were discussing before the break a little bit more about the relations between Australia and Austin, and just wanted to let everyone know if you are interested in getting your products out to Australia, please come down to Brave New Books, drop off your information, and we would be happy to, start organizing that, getting, some of the products here from Austin, the local products, over to Australia. And we are going to be doing a lot of that, too, at the Austin Universe show we have coming up at the end of August there, August 19th through the 28th. So be sure to join us for that, too, because we're going to have a lot of people here from Australia, a lot of locals here in Austin, Texas. So anything we can do to further that business relationship is definitely something we want to work on. If everyone works together, everyone wins. So that's kind of the mantra we want to go with.
Yeah, Ryan does that. That computer science is great, and we work with Lockheed Martin, and we all know how successful Lockheed Martin was. I think prior to the last 8 years, it was an incredible company. But it's kind of interesting, Lockheed Martin just, there's a press release, they tried to, because India, from my understanding, didn't want the F-35 jets being what's reported by both internationally and U.S. groups being a failure, a $1 trillion failure. They seem to be purchasing their planes from Russia, their military planes, so billions of dollars lost for the U.S. Military manufacturing. But Lockheed Martin made a special trip and said, hey, according to the report, that they were willing to build the F-18 fighters in India, helping Indians build them. And India also rejected that offer. And it's just like, when you prevent individual rights in any place, if I'm and look at the microcosm of high school or college or an inventor, if I prevent the individual rights of someone to think with new thoughts, like a Nikola Tesla, I prevent that, then I'm preventing my own country from being on the cutting edge of technology and the cutting edge of, the big deals. Like, how much money is spent on procuring weapons of defense? It's the big industry. And the US is losing out because, unfortunately, we had such incredible free thinkers who created incredible technology that is still being used in the F-22, the F-18. The Berkshire naval vessels. And we've gone on some weird thing the last 8 years and just created technology that doesn't seem to work by their own reports. And, when you see the idea of collectivism to where they're shutting down independent thought, independent ways of life, the self-empowerment of persons, they're more and more of your individual rights is being pressured on to have you think a certain way. Like even the debate of a flat earth or a globe earth. Let's just look at the facts. Let's use our quadrivium trivium. Let's use the systems of process that we learned that involved in our
court systems of listening and debate. Let's not use sensationalism, let's look at the numbers. And, we'll all come up to the truth. We don't have to convince someone of the truth, because the truth is the truth. We just need to have an open debate where both groups want to see truth, not see special interests contracts. And so unfortunately, we've just seen the Lockheed Martin debt to equity ratio. Ryan, I think you were looking at that last week, right? What was it approximately?
I don't remember offhand, but it was just pretty ridiculous. In a reasonable world, some of these companies, the amount of debt they have versus the amount of money they're bringing in is just so ridiculous. If there weren't money just being printed out of thin air and them getting forced government contracts, like all these companies would be out of business. It's not a plausible business model for anyone who doesn't have access to free money. It's just impossible. It would never work. So it's...
and even just recently, the Australian government gave a contract to France, $50 billion to build a submarine, non-nuclear submarine. Now, in Texas, we have nuclear submarines. We have great submarines. We did have great submarines. And then there's a report that the submarine engines have all these problems that are being built in the US at the moment. Maybe that's the reason why the government in Australia decided to have France do it. Or they've been looking at Japan having built it. And, you have to ask yourself, what happened over the last 8 to 10 years that our military equipment in the US, our companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop, were producing equipment that people, that weren't buying because of its quality. And now you've got a huge shift to buying equipment from Russia or from China. And the testing is coming out that this is by some of the own US, scientists, researchers, government people saying that yes, the Russian and Chinese technology is ahead in some cases or on par in some cases, and it's being made for the fraction of the cost. How did free thinking, creativity, the ability for Nikola Tesla to rise and create, such advancements? What's going on where they're having that freedom prevented, that creativity prevented, that small business, that greatness prevented?
And I think that's the key. It's these special interest groups that, are getting preferential treatment and favors, whether it's not having to follow the Obamacare or getting preferable tax treatments by being able to set up overseas or getting free government contracts and handouts. It's just completely ridiculous, and it destroys the idea of capitalism and the idea of people being able to compete against each other, not pretend to compete against each other or forced to compete against each other, being able to compete against each other to have the best product. And, I'd love to see a society come about where, many people could put different businesses together, and the ones that say wouldn't end up working out, they'd go work for the person that ended up doing the good job, or they would try something else, or you would just have all these people succeeding because of providing better quality or better service or better products or better technology, not just doing everything they can to hang on to the status quo.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I spoke to, some people off record in both China and India, because I was like, okay, there's a lot of information that's put out by the media in the US of slave labor goods or these type of things, like cheap, manufacturing and coming from China and India, and how the US can't compete with these prices, and how India and China pay workers more money. And then actually talking to some of the people, off record, they asked to disclose their names. But I got to see some of the agreements, and it seems from what they showed me that they're saying, look, these large companies in the US are demanding that we produce this much volume for this price. And for some of us, we're only making a 2% profit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us won't even touch any of these big contracts from US companies anymore, because we need to pay our workers and our families enough money to survive, possibly be able to pay for their kids' food and go to school. And they're saying the pressure isn't from us wanting to carry out these contracts at these prices. And the pressure's coming from these middlemen US corporate special interest groups that are saying, hey, you need to produce this much at this price or we're going somewhere else. And if talking to these people in China, they're saying look, you're making 300-400% margins on the retail. Why is it that we're having to produce so cheaply that we can't pay affordable wages to the workers? And I'd like to set up a platform where we can have a conversation between people on both sides, and let's try to get a better understanding of what the truth is. I'm just repeating things that I've been told by individuals that just are bewildered by why, when we look at US being so wealthy and the retail cost of things, why they're being forced in these contracts to
takes a little.
Yeah, it's interesting because an iPhone isn't cheap. I mean, who's making all that money on a $900 phone?
If the phone actually costs it's a couple of dollars.
Right. That's what it sounds so crazy, you know.
A lot of middlemen, a lot of handouts.
$15, and the people might want to commit suicide of the suicide net thing. I mean, like, how much is what we're doing causing these things? Because when you
hang tight.
Welcome back to Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior here on the Logos Radio Network, 89.1 FM in Austin, Texas. And I wanted to invite everyone down today at 5:30 at Brave New Books. They're going to be doing a longevity lecture. So if you've ever heard of the Tangy Tangerine, or in the clinics, I know Dave and Elisa have liked to take and tell patients that it would be good to take the multivitamin, multi-mineral complex that they have, plant-derived multi-minerals, which I actually love as well. And my dad actually takes that too, and he loves that. So come down, everyone, 5:30 at Brave New Books if you want to learn more about the longevity products and the business opportunities, I guess, provided with the company. And you can also check out the Burke Superfoods products too while you're here. They have a full stock of those here at Brave New Books.
Yeah, Ryan, one thing I was thinking just the other day that I love about Austin and about Brave New Books is there's always something going on, it seems, at Brave New Books. They're always having some kind of event or some kind of premiere or movie showing, and it's just such a wonderful community hub where people of like minds, I can say, but maybe not everyone thinks exactly the same, but it's cool because there's a discussion point and a place to meet and to talk about just alternative ideas and nutrition and health and politics.
Yeah, you can sit down. People are looking for a truth, and you can sit down and listen and have a conversation, and together you can work out and undo the knots of whether it's deceit, lies, or just not understanding the true nature of reality, and try to come up together with cooperation, a more honest viewpoint of the world, or what the world's at, or where you're at. And Ryan, last week you had a great guest on, and can you let the listeners know a little bit about, in short, the guest? And I know there's, I might say, there's a trial going on in Texas at the moment, and bring a little bit of light on this man's work and these filmmakers and where they can get this public film at.
Yeah, last week I had on Tony Farmer, who was the main guy here in Austin, Texas, actually trying to coordinate getting people out to the Dr. Brzezinski rally, which, he has been on trial here in Austin, Texas for the past few weeks. And so amazing time with that. We also had the director of the film here on the show, which was amazing. After the show, we ended up showing the film here at Brave New Books. That was the first time I had seen it. I would recommend everyone go see that. And we also had several of the patients call in, which I think was the most exciting part of the show because, it's like the he said, she said stuff. You guys are in Australia and people are talking about, Austin, Texas, or, New Yorkers are saying this, California. Well, I heard directly from patients who, some who had been his clients as young as like 4 years old. And now they were like, 24, 25, 26 years old. And to hear stuff directly from people's mouths, their own personal testimony, I think that's the way.
Yeah, right. What did this doctor do? Like, can you let our listeners know, like, what? So we're actually talking a little bit to some of the Australian audience today, and some of the people in the Australian military having a conversation about this Dr. Brzezinski and what was going on. Can you let them know what did this guy apparently do and what is he alleged to be done?
Well, he ended up putting together. It's called, I think it's. Neoplastons, I believe, is what it is, anti-neoplastons. And it's just it was a compound that he found while he was doing research. And he found that people that had cancer were lacking a lot of these compounds, and people that didn't have it, had more of them. And so what he ended up doing was finding a way to manufacture themselves. So essentially he's trying to, manufacture his own drug, I guess, is the way he would put it, which is why all the big pharmaceutical companies and the FDA want to completely attack him. because, no one wants to have anyone in on their racket. And he actually tried partnering up with some of the pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical companies, including one in Japan. But it sounds like they all were prevented from working with him by companies and agencies here in the U.S. who didn't want
and
his...
this information, Ryan, is what you're saying you basically saw in the documentary. People can watch it for themselves in the documentary. Yeah,
I'm just relaying the information that was provided in the documentary. And it's anti-neoplaston, if you want to look that up. It's ANTI-NEOPLASTONS. And those are the chemical compounds that he's utilizing in his clinic, along with a lot of other different types of treatments and everything too. But it's just amazing when you're talking with people who were able to, reverse and be saved from incurable cancer cures. Like they were the only person that survived this form of cancer, or doctors wrote them off as being dead, and they're telling you their personal testimony. That's some strong evidence right there, using, the trivium, the quadrivium that you always bring up. And Mark Passio actually has some great videos for people interested more in that. We did a show on that a few weeks ago. So check out that show. Check out Mark Passio's video on the trivium and the quadrivium. And it's, utilizing that kind of information to make decisions for yourself, not just, repeating what you've heard, not just, listening maybe to people who have never been in the U.S. about how Austin, Texas is. It's using this knowledge for yourself to determine what works and what doesn't. So, that's, I guess that's my spiel on there. And, he seems like a great guy to me from the movies. I've never met him personally, but it just doesn't seem like he's trying to hurt people. I get a pretty good sense of people's agendas, and it just doesn't seem like he's the type of person who's going out of his way to maliciously hurt people. And if someone isn't trying to specifically hurt someone, if they're really trying to help them, and the person has been written off by all medical establishments as basically being left for dead, who is anyone to tell this person that they can't try this? I mean, that's absolutely insane. That's the definition of a psychopath, and a definition of what I would consider to be, mass murdering government bureaucracy. So
Ryan,
preventing this is insane.
Yeah. Has there been any, I know you said he's on trial right now in Austin, you said? Has there been any developments in the last week or so yet?
I haven't heard. I think the trial was supposed to be ending, but I haven't heard. I even looked online, but I haven't heard any updates as far as to what happened with the trial or where it stands right now. I'm still waiting to get updates from everyone that I had been with here that past week.
And Ryan, just from looking at the documentary and speaking with the documentary filmmakers, approximately how many people do you think, and this is an approximate, that this doctor may have helped heal or cure? I'm not sure exactly what the legal word that people are associating with it, because there's such a word game that's put into play of cancer.
I mean, you're talking about easily hundreds, if not thousands, possibly more. I mean, they've raided his facility several times and taken all the documents. And it's very interesting. Actually, I just Googled Brzezinski to see if there's any more news. And apparently, this is an interesting article. FDA closes last option for 20-year-old RI cancer patient facing death. So there's a kid that it looks like after he had been approved to get this trial for Brzezinski, and the FDA decided to reclassify some of the ingredients, the raw materials the Brzezinski Institute uses to synthesize the antineoplastons. And now it looks like they're preventing him from getting this medicine. So they're essentially just killing this kid. I mean, that's what they're doing. So right now, congratulations, everyone in the U.S. Congratulations to the FDA. You guys are doing such a great job out there. You're actually murdering people. So nice having that on your hands, everyone with the FDA.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, Andrew. Ryan, when I spoke to some of our friends from other countries in China, they were like, can you send him over to China? He says, they're like we need smart people like that to help our people in China. Can he come visit us? And I was like, I'll ask.
Wow.
I mean, that's what the insanity is. Like, when people's individual greatness, their connection, like Nikola Tesla said, he believed that all the information we needed was in the universe, and our brains work as a receiver. And when the universe has chosen someone like this doctor, and like I said, I didn't know that much about it, but it's chosen individuals to deliver, like in a sense of profit, solutions to things we had. We need to let them have the individual space to do what they're meant to do. We wouldn't have electricity if the individual rights of Nikola Tesla were more reduced than what they were. I mean, he had so much to offer.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I wanted to answer your question here, Dave. And so this is from this article, which actually just came out today. It's on golocalprov.com if you want to check that out. And it's FDA closes last option for 20-year-old cancer patient facing death. It looks like since then he's used his drugs to treat over 2,300 cancer patients. And it looks like total he's had over 8,000 patients, 2,300 for cancer, and has authored more than 300 journal articles and registered 244 patents across the world. So again, I'm just making a guess here. I don't know. I'm guessing that most of the people involved with the FDA have provided little to absolutely nothing useful to the rest of society in the form of cancer cures, journal articles, or patents. And so you have a group of people who provide nothing for anyone, telling those of us who actually are going out there doing things what we can do. And that needs to end. It needs to end now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in a good place. He's in Texas, so God bless Texas and the Texas spirit of people. Don't mess with Texas. Texas people will fight back. And I will put a prayer out there that the truth sets Mr. Brinsky free, and people who can't help it, and if they can't help this young man who has this problem, that information and alternatives get to him. To help.
Very true. Join us next week.